Hi there, it's Tiffany of Clarity, Confidence, Courage, Women's Empowerment. Welcome or welcome back. In our relationships, whether with family, friends, partners, or coworkers, it can sometimes feel like we're absorbing everyone's emotions. For women especially, social expectations often emphasize empathy and nurturing, sometimes at the expense of our own personal emotional boundaries. However, confident women know that maintaining emotional boundaries is essential not only for self-care, but also for healthier, more authentic, fulfilling relationships. Today, we're going to jump into this topic of emotional boundaries. With the holidays coming up, you are putting yourself in a position when it comes to holiday events and going around family and visiting people. You're putting yourself in a position to be an emotional sponge, to be around people that might push your buttons, or people that might be disrespectful, or people in general that's just bringing along their toxic, dysfunctional baggage to family gatherings. So you need to know how to handle yourself and have emotional boundaries. Now, as always, be sure to share, like, and subscribe to the channel. And let's get into this. If you've ever felt emotionally drained after spending time with certain people or found yourself overly responsible for other people's happiness, you may need to strengthen your emotional boundaries. Setting and respecting emotional boundaries doesn't mean shutting out everybody else. It doesn't mean being unsympathetic at all. Rather, it's about honoring both your own needs as well as the needs of others at the same time. So here's how you can cultivate this crucial skill while building a more confident, balanced life. First, you need to understand what emotional boundaries are. Emotional boundaries are the invisible lines that define where your emotions end and another person's emotions begin. They prevent you from over-identifying with other people's feelings or becoming too wrapped up and entangled in other people's emotional states. When you're confident in your own emotional boundaries and you're grounded in self, you can empathize without absorbing or mirroring someone else's mood. Here's the reason why this is so important. Without healthy boundaries, especially around your emotions, it's easy to feel responsible for others' emotions, leading to emotional burnout and resentment. Confident women understand that they can show compassion and support without carrying the load of someone else's emotional weight. You have the right to care about other people, but let them own their emotions. Let them own their feelings. That's not your job. Stay in your lane. Show empathy, show compassion, and then step back into self and own your emotions. That is having emotional boundaries. Number two, you want to identify emotional triggers. We all have emotional triggers and situations that make us feel particularly vulnerable or overwhelmed. These triggers can stem from past experiences, insecurities, childhood trauma, past abuse, or ingrained beliefs about relationships. Recognizing these triggers helps you identify moments where your boundaries may be at risk of being compromised and consumed. So here's a quick action step. Reflect on a recent interaction where you felt emotionally drained. Were there specific behaviors or comments that affected you? Recognize these moments as indicators to strengthen your emotional boundaries. What's causing the trigger? Why is it triggering you? When was the first time in your life that you felt triggered by that type of emotional boundary violation? Get to the root of the issue. Number three, communicate your boundaries clearly. Once you're aware of your emotional limits, communicate them clearly and openly. Boundaries are most effective when they're shared with the people who impact you directly. Confident women assert their needs without guilt or shame, understanding that clear communication is an act of self-respect and a sign of respect for others as well. For example, let's say you have a friend or a family member who frequently vents to you about personal issues and you find it overwhelming. You might say, look, girl, you know I want to support you, but I also need to take care of my own emotional well-being. Can we set a time to chat about this and perhaps keep it focused to avoid overwhelming each other? Or maybe somebody calls you in the middle of the day, your mom or your sister, and you're trying to work and they're trying to tell you all their problems. An emotional boundary would be, you know what, I really would love to help you with this, but now just is not a great time for me. Can I call you later on this evening and then we can have a session and talk about it then? Here's the thing. You have the right to set limits on your emotional boundaries. Number 4, practice detachment, not disconnection. Detachment is the art of being present with someone without absorbing their emotional state. It's a way of empathizing with their experience without carrying their feelings as your own. Confident women practice detachment as a means to support others effectively while safeguarding their own mental and emotional energy. People can tell you things, but you don't have to absorb it. So here's some tips for this type of detachment. Take a deep breath and center yourself before a conversation. You should really be doing this every morning before you start your day. Visualize an emotional boundary around you like a big ball of light. Let that be a mental reminder that you can observe without absorbing. And remind yourself that supporting someone doesn't mean solving or internalizing their issues. Again, let people own their own stuff. You are not everybody's fixer. You can be a listening ear if you want to, but don't let their emotions become your problem. Number 5, set boundaries with empathy and kindness. Setting emotional boundaries isn't about creating emotional walls. It's about expressing your needs in a way that's respectful to both you and the other person. Empathetic boundary setting ensures you're clear about your limits without coming across as cold or dismissive if you don't want to. So, for example, you can say, I'm here for you and I care about what's going on, but for my own well-being, I need to take a step back when things get really overwhelming. I want to support you in a way that feels healthy for the both of us, but some of what you're going through, you probably need to talk to a professional like a therapist. You have to know when too much is too much. And if it's somebody that you care about and you want to keep the relationship going, then communicate it clearly because they may not realize that they're overstepping your boundary. 6, create a routine for emotional self-care. Confident women prioritize their emotional well-being, understanding that they can't show up for others effectively if they're drained. Emotional self-care involves dedicating time to reconnect with yourself, release stress, and refuel. Some ideas for emotional self-care: take an art class. Yes, getting all of your artistic, creative visions out on paper can be really helpful for emotional self-care. Engage in activities that you love, that relax you. Maybe that's watching a basketball game or hanging out with friends that you really enjoy, going for coffee or going for hikes in nature. Set time limits on emotionally intense conversations or dramas. This can also mean don't watch television like news or television shows that are scary or always negative, or things on television that get you emotionally dysregulated. You have to know yourself well enough to say, you know what, that's too much for me. Let me step back and let me focus on my emotional self-care. Lastly, embrace the power of saying no. I know saying no can be emotionally challenging if you have gotten used to being a constant source of support. But confident women understand that their time and their energy are finite, so they protect themselves by turning down requests or engagements that don't serve their emotional well-being. You have the right to say no. And here's how to say no with grace. Here's a few examples. You can say, I'd love to help, but I'm focusing on some personal priorities right now. Or you can say, I understand this is important, but I need some time for myself before I can commit to offering support. And if you really want to dig into this idea of how to verbalize your boundaries, be sure to get my Empower Boundaries workbook, which is on my website. The link is in the description below. Remember, you may encounter people who push back against your boundaries or attempt to make you feel guilty. But confident women know how to stand firm, knowing that their emotional health is non-negotiable. They recognize that maintaining boundaries, especially around their emotions, is essential for their well-being, their growth, and their happiness. Now, here's the thing. None of this will work if you're dealing with the person who overtly disrespects you. They overtly disrespect your boundaries. They know what your boundaries are, and they don't care. They try to erode you and mistreat you. Those are toxic people. These people with these narcissistic personality disorders and all these other issues, none of this works because they're abusive. Remember, trust your intuition. If someone disrespects your boundaries repeatedly, it's a signal that they may not fully respect you. And if they don't respect you, why are you giving them your energy? Stand firm. It isn't selfish. It's actually a sign of strength and self-respect. There are some people you can have these type of conversations with around your emotional boundaries. And then there's some people who know what your emotional boundaries are. They just don't care. And they will disrespect you anyway. Confident women know when to walk away from people who blatantly and overtly disrespect their emotional boundaries. Remember, you can respect others' emotions without losing yourself. Emotional boundaries are not barriers. They're the foundations for stronger, healthier, and more authentic connections. When you protect your emotional space, you're not only honoring yourself, but creating the groundwork for more empowered and fulfilling relationships. Now, as always, be sure to share, like, and subscribe. And remember, protect your emotional boundaries because you're the most important person in your life. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.